channel. This is part 2 of our building out the ability for forum admins to enable or disable Google ReCAPTCHA during email sign up. All right, now the first thing I want to do is I want to get to a bug that I inadvertently included in the last video, or I didn't solve for, and I'm going to show it to you now. So if we go to our authentication section, you notice that the keys, the Google keys, the fields for the keys isn't showing up, right? Which was weird to me. And then I would go down to the Google ReCAPTCHA key section and I would hit toggle and nothing would show up. But then when I scroll back up, then I see the keys. All right. And that was a bug from the last video. So let's go ahead and fix that and figure out what's going on. And then today we are going to be actually hooking up the ReCAPTCHA to the actual create action, like the user account create action. So if the ReCAPTCHA hasn't been completed, then the user account isn't created. That's what we're working on today. And hopefully we'll have time to also, like I said in the last video, with this checked or unchecked, we're going to show or hide the fields for the site keys. All right, but let's go ahead and fix this bug because it's annoying. So let's go into the code and I'm going to shift my little head over there. Now let's see how this got introduced. Let's go to our show page. All right, so these are the fields for the, okay, so if we look at the div that contains our ReCAPTCHA fields, we see these classes, collapse and hide, right? And if you remember down where we had them in their own section, the ReCAPTCHA section, we had a bit of code there, and we actually haven't gotten rid of that, which we should. We're gonna do that right now. So let's go down, and where was it? Let's go ahead and search Google. Okay, I know it was under the analytics. All right, here we go. So this is where we cut our keys out of, but this whole thing is still, you know, the toggle, the collapse, and the show, it's still happening even though we took the fields out of here, right? So let's actually go ahead and get rid of this entire block of code because we don't need it anymore. All right, and then if you remember the classes that we noticed for the div surrounding our keys, if I can just find the keys, we have this collapse and hide, right? I don't believe we're going to need those because at this juncture, we want to see the fields. And so let's do that like so. And let's go now to the front end and refresh. Now we shouldn't see the Google ReCAPTCHA section underneath, you know, used to appear under analytics. It's gone. And hopefully when we open, there we go. So our fields are showing and all is well with the world. So that was a small bug that we needed to fix. All right, so let's go now. Let's move into hooking this action up. And I have my ReCAPTCHA enabled and I have actual site keys. And like I said, I will either make a video to show you how to get your ReCAPTCHA keys, or I'll just reproduce I will reproduce the directions for getting them in the description below this video. All right. Okay. So let's go ahead and hook this up. So in the code base, if we remember, we pulled, let's go to our registration form. So we pulled this block of code from the feedback messages form, if you remember, and we repurposed it for our use. But what I now need to figure out is probably this is going to live in the controller, but I need to figure out how do we actually prevent the action from happening if the ReCAPTCHA hasn't been completed. And so let's go back to feedback messages, since that is what we're using to figure our way through this implementation. So let's go to controllers, and I am looking for the feedback messages controller, because that's going to show me kind of how things are hooked up, at least for the feedback messages. All right, so they also have a create action. So this is creating the feedback message, and I see that it's including a check. It's checking if the reCAPTCHA is disabled, which makes sense, because if reCAPTCHA isn't enabled, then you don't want there to be any prevention of creation, right? And so it's checking for this, or it's checking for if the reCAPTCHA is verified. Okay, and these look like they are private methods. And so reCAPTCHA disabled is defined here, and we have it as, okay, the site key is blank and the secret key is blank. Makes sense. So if you haven't entered any keys, then reCAPTCHA should not, it shouldn't, there shouldn't be any restrictions. And over here, it's checking if reCAPTCHA is verified. All right, now it's taking the params, it's defining reCAPTCHA params, and it's taking the secret key. All right, and then it's checking for if this exists and verify reCAPTCHA. All right, so before creating this video, and this was more to save time than anything, I figured out that this line right here is, we are actually giving it for free through the gem. All right, through the ReCAPTCHA gem that we installed in order to have ReCAPTCHA on our Forem sites. That line right there is given to us through the gem. So there, it's not really, we didn't define it anywhere. That comes with the gem. And so in my mind, I'm thinking I can pull these methods into the registrations controller, and then that will enable me to also perform this check for my user account creation. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and do that? And you might be asking, oh, Arit, you're pulling things from here and you're moving them there. The way I approach development is, if it's gonna break, let it break. I think that's my general mindset. If it's gonna break, let it break. If it breaks, we'll fix it. If it doesn't break, yay. And so rather than kind of getting paralyzed up here, bring out whatever is in your brain, bring out whatever is in your mind, implement it, put it in the code and see what happens. And I find that I make a lot more progress that way than trying to have it all figured out up here before I start to code. All right, so we are going to paste those private methods here. All right, and let's tweak them first, because we have, remember, an additional setting, which is Google ReCAPTCHA enabled or disabled for this. And so we need to modify this method for our needs. And so yes, if the site, if it's blank, if either of these is true, or if site config, and I can never remember it, so I'm just gonna go ahead and copy it from here. But if this option is true, okay? Does that make sense? And so we're, oh, what is it? Oh, okay, so we need to indent it more. Okay. All right, and so we are checking for if either of those site fields is blank. If either of them is blank, then ReCAPTCHA is disabled, or not either, sorry, if both of them are blank. Actually, it should be either. It should be either. Okay, we're gonna change this. We're gonna change, because we don't need, if either of them is blank, it's not gonna work, because we need both of them to have to be populated with some keys, and hopefully the keys are correct, right? And so we're going to say if the site key is blank, or if the secret key is blank, or site is disabled, right? And so this, we want to make sure that this isn't true. We want to make sure it's false, and so that's why we put the bang in front of it, right? Okay, and we still have some complaints. Okay, That's RuboCop, just making sure that our indentation and everything is correct. All right, and so this is our reCAPTCHA disabled method. We're checking for, these three things, right? Now, this now is if reCAPTCHA is verified. And I'm just going to leave this as is because I believe from what I was able to ascertain, this is given to us by the gem. All right, now this is our user create action up here, right? And user account creation. And so we kind of have all these going on, and all this is going to happen if, okay, so this entire, I'm not even going to go into what every single line means, but what I do know is this is the code that creates our new user account and, does whatever else needs to happen after the user account has been created. And so we're going to build our guard. We're going to build our check around this, right? So let's go ahead and indent that. And then we're going to say if, just like we had in the feedback controller, I believe, feedback messages controller, we're going to steal this. All right. I'm going to close this. All right, so we stole that, and I don't think we need the brackets because we don't have anything after. All right, and so we're going to go ahead and build, create our user else, and let me just end it as well. So else, and so let's think about what we want to do. If the reCAPTCHA, let's assume it's enabled. If the reCAPTCHA hasn't been verified, then we want to probably reload the page and then show some kind of error message that you need to complete the reCAPTCHA, right? All right. So we are going to say we're going to redirect to, and I forget. Let me grab this. I remember I wrote it down somewhere. This is not showing up on the page. I'm kind of checking my secret, stuff to remember stash. But I do remember it being, okay, here we go. All right. So we have all right, so we're going to redirect the user to the registration page, which is the new user registration path. All right, and there's different params that can be in the URL depending on kind of what's going on, and so we definitely want to send them with, and the user param needs to be email sign up, and I will show that to you just right this second. Just 1 second if I can find my mouse. All right, okay, so right here. Okay, so this is the new user registration path, but then we have a state param that is equal to email sign up, right? And so that's what we kind of have going on here. All right, so we're redirecting them here, and then we want to flash a notice. Okay, and I never remember how to do these, so I'm actually going to go to the feedback, or where is it? Feedback, because I know they have a flash message configured there too. All right, yeah, I never remember. So this is the flash notice that we want to show. I never remember how to do it, so I'm just gonna remind myself. All right, so, and we're going to flash a notice, and in our case we are going to say you need to complete the Google reCAPTCHA. All right, and so that is our flash notice. And now if we go back to the sorry, not the let's go back to the view, the feedback messages view, I want to point something out that I learned as I've been working. Whenever you include a flash notice or flash error in your controller, you want to make sure that there is an anchor present. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. So right here, okay? And so this is a block of code checking for if there is a flash notice or a flash error. You know, you need to create a div, you need to create a space for it to actually show up, because this isn't the case throughout every page, every view in our code base. And so we're going to need to grab this, and we are going to make sure I copy, and we are going to include that in our email sign up view right here. Okay, so this is the view, and we typically put it like right inside the most parent div, I guess you could say. All right, and so we're checking for if there's a flash notice, and then we are creating just an anchor point, you know, for it to show up. Okay, all right, so that is that. And let's see, registrations controller, we have that set up. And we have our private admin. Let's see if we get errors, we'll solve them. All right, so let's go back to our front end, and what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna switch this around to this side and move this to this side. All right, okay. All right, so let's go ahead and create our user. I don't think profile image is required, so let's go let's think of a name. Let's say Betty White. All right, and username Betty White, and for email I'm just gonna say Betty White at fakeemail.com. Password. Alright. Oh, wait a minute. I have to make sure. Let's just make it one of her names. Alright. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and not complete the reCAPTCHA and see what happens. Oh, so this is necessary. Okay, so I need to choose a file. Let me choose that file over there. Okay, so let's go ahead. We're not going to complete the CAPTCHA. Let's sign up and see what happens. Ooh, we get a redirect. We get a redirect. That is weird. Well, looking at the URL, I see that there's a typo. I said email Signup, so that's one thing, but that doesn't explain the redirect. And so if we go back to our code, we see that we are hitting, okay, we are hitting the redirect, and we didn't get a flash notice, probably because we didn't go to the right we didn't go to the right URL, because there is a typo here. All right. It's amazing, like the type of errors that arise just from simple typos. All right, so let's go ahead and fix that, and let's go back to our front end and let's try that again. All right, so profile image. Okay, and okay. Oh, now we did. Oh, yes. Okay. I was just thinking, I'm not sure if, but no, I don't think that happened. All right. Okay. We're going to leave that, and let's sign up. Wonderful. Okay. So we came back to the sign up page, and there's our flash notice. You need to complete the Google reCAPTCHA. So that part is working. Yay. All right, so let's see now what happens when we do create and when we do complete the Google reCAPTCHA. So let's go through this process again. Now, you may be thinking, oh, this is tedious, and having to do this on the front end. That's the reason for tests, right? So I guess the process that we've taken so far hasn't been TDD, test driven development, because with TDD you write your test first and then you implement and then you get your test to pass, but we didn't do that this time. But yeah, that's the value of TDD. Is we wouldn't, if we had set tests up and, you know, really accurate tests, we wouldn't have to do this on the front end. We could just run our tests and, you know, test our code that way. Maybe another, when we build out another feature and I do another one of these, we might go the TDD route instead of this route, but for now we're going to do it this way. All right, so I filled out all my fields and I am completing the CAPTCHA. It says everything with a bus. I think that's it. Okay, good. And I say sign up. Oh, password is too short. Okay. I didn't mean for that to happen, so let's do it again. All right, this time I'm just gonna say Betty. Okay, and let's go. Okay. All right, and complete the ReCAPTCHA. Mountains or hills? Okay, all right. And we sign up. Yay! Wonderful. So that user has been created. How can we check that programmatically? We can actually. If we go into our console and we go into the Rails console, it's taking a minute, all right, and we just check the last user to be created. Okay, that's a whole lot of information, so let me do that again, but I'm gonna say user last, and then I'm going to look for username, and we see it's Betty. User last, and we look for email, and we see it's betty@fakeemail.com. So our user was created. Isn't that amazing? I love it when code works. I don't know, it's always the highlight of my day. All right, let me go ahead and exit out of here. It looks like my keyboard isn't working. All right, so we have hooked up the ReCAPTCHA to the user creation process, and we figured out that it works. If you don't complete the ReCAPTCHA, we get an error, and when we do, our user is created. And so that part is done. I'm going to stop this video here. In our next video, we're going to do the last two things that we talked about, right? And the last two things we talked about were writing tests for all this functionality that we just built out, writing robust tests that tests everything. And we are also going to implement more a UX situation, user experience, where if this is unchecked, if this option is unchecked, these fields are hidden, and when it's checked, these fields show up. So that's going to be the third video. I really hope to see you there. Thanks for watching.